Welcome back to Coffee with Krav, where I have conversations with different people from different walks of life to try to look to entertain, educate, and really just have some fun. Well, football is over. I hope your team won. I know some of the people on this podcast, your team lost. Sorry about that. But tomorrow, good news. Tomorrow, pitchers and catchers report to spring training. I love this time of year as spring is around the corner and all the baseball teams are really in the same position. They're all starting at 0 wins and 0 losses. However, some teams have spent like drunken sailors, and we know how that could turn out sometimes. So we're going to talk about that. I'm really looking forward to my next guest, Gregg Picker. Gregg joined SNY in 2006 and is the senior coordinating producer for all of SNY and PIX produced New York Met games. SNY's Met broadcasts are widely considered by media and fans as the best in all of Major League Baseball. The 2023 season will mark the 18th year together for Gregg and the popular announcer trio of Gary Cohen, Keith Hernandez, and Ron Darling. Prior to joining SNY, Picker worked at ESPN for 3 years, where he served as producer covering Major League Baseball, college basketball, and tennis. While covering tennis for ESPN, he produced the French Open, Wimbledon, and Australian Open. He also worked at the USA Network, and he produced the Westminster Dog Show, figure skating specials, and weekly series Tuesday Night Fights. Picker's other accomplishment includes working for CBS at the 1994 Winter Olympic Games in Lillehammer, serving as producer for NBC at 1996 Summer Olympics, and producing the Boston Marathon. He has produced college basketball for CBS Sports during the baseball offseason. The announcers he's worked side by side includes Dick Enberg, John McEnroe, Tracy Austin, Dick Vitale, Jay Bilas, Patrick McEnroe, Sean McDonough, Bill McAtee, and Kevin Bernhardt. Mr. Picker is also an 8-time Emmy Award winner. Welcome to Coffee with Krav. And Gregg, let me just say something. I can't think of a better person to spend Valentine's Day than with you, and also those beautiful roses that you got me. Oh my God, that was so nice. But
we started setting up the backdrop about 6 a.m. with the assistance of my wife Nancy.
Beautiful. Yeah, nice job.
Yes, thank you. So that intro makes me, as you're reading that, it makes me think, two things. One, you're a natural at this, and two, that I'm old, because that's a lot of stuff.
Oh, stop. You're young. You're a young man. Well, let's take you back. Let me take you back a little bit. You've been involved in producing many sports, tennis, basketball, baseball. Where'd you get this passion for sports?
That's got to go way back. Sports was always a big part of our family. My dad actually was a minor league baseball player in the Dodger organization, and I just grew up around sports. I had a younger brother, and both of us were very into sports, and it's been a fabric and really a part of our lives since, as far back as I can remember. I played everything growing up in New York. I grew up in Riverdale, in the Bronx section of New York. And, whether it was stickball or basketball in the schoolyard or touch football. And, we would literally be out from, after school till dark. I remember, I would always have an issue with my mom. She would always complain I came home late, and was always late for dinner, and it was a whole to do in the family. But that's a whole other story. And then I through high school I played basketball, I played baseball, and I played a year of college baseball. So I knew I always wanted to be around sports as far as a career went, and that's really the root of what I do now.
And just a quick question: when you were growing up, did you ever play softball on concrete?
We played everything on concrete.
In Brooklyn, we played softball on concrete. Pretty crazy, right?
We played everything on concrete, including. Did you play Ringolevio when you were a kid?
Now, if you said that you played tackle football on concrete, that's going.
Some of the games became a little rough, and it did not start off as tackle football. but
Yeah,
it
right.
evolved into tackle football.
Gotcha. So how'd you get into producing sports? How'd you get into the industry? Because that doesn't seem like you go to school, or did you go to school for that,
No,
or
the
how'd you?
interesting thing was my cousin's wife worked for NBC Sports. And when I was in college at the University of Vermont looking for a summer job, we were together and were speaking. And the very first job I had in sports television was as an intern at NBC Sports. And it was kind of funny because when she talked about the internship, she said, "Here's what we're going to do. I can get you the internship. We're not going to tell anybody that we're related, so that as you go through the summer, you'll either sink or swim on your own." And that's really what happened. And that was the very first foray into exposure to sports television. And when I got out of college, the first job I had was as an NBC page, which is a fairly prestigious program. There's been a lot of television people that have come through the page program. And I, spent 18 months in the page program, which is the duration of the program until they basically kick you out if you haven't gotten a full-time job by then. And, I was at 30 Rock for a year and a half as a page. And, for people that are not familiar with that, you pretty much wear your blue blazer with the NBC peacock on it, and you give tours in the building. Sometimes if you get bored enough giving the tours, you give the tours in different accents, which we started. And you have short stints at various jobs. You have 3-month job increments at Saturday Night Live, at NBC Sports, and also the Letterman show at that time was at NBC. So we would usher the Letterman show and seat people and stand in the back while the show was going on. And that was kind of cool because I was a big Letterman fan in college. And I actually ushered one of his more, he did a show that became very, in his world, very famous. He reunited Sonny and Cher.
Oh.
So they say, I got you, babe. And so I remember ushering that show. I also remember bouncing a Super Bowl when I was seating people, and I was sitting on top. The show was being taped, and I had a Super Bowl that I was bouncing just to mess around and kill time. And I dropped the Super Bowl, and it rolled down all the steps leading to the stage, and it stopped about a foot short of this rolling onto the stage.
Not good. Not good.
No, not good.
So do you want to reenact maybe and do some accents while? No, just kidding.
We would give the tours in different accents, and then we would also race each other to see who could run through the tour the quickest. But it was actually a very cool job because it gave you a lot of exposure to different areas of the network, and it was a great job out of college because you were with 50 of your contemporaries. So socially, it was a nice transition from being in college to moving into the workforce.
So now let's go over to the ESPN part of your career. You did college basketball, March Madness. I got to believe that was a tremendous amount of fun to do.
I didn't work on March Madness there. That was CBS had the tournament. So
okay. I
did work on the women's NCAA tournament. So ESPN came to be because I had been at USA Network for about 10 years. They were kind enough to hire me when I knew nothing about television, really. Actually, I'll go back. I'll tell you a funny story. My very first job, really, in sports television was as a spotter for NFL football at NBC for a person named Ted Nathanson, who is their coordinating director of football. He was a terrific guy. He has since passed away, but he was the lead director for NFL at NBC for their A team. Dick Enberg was the play-by-play person. Merlin Olsen was the analyst. And Teddy, when I got the job as his spotter, and the responsibilities of the spotter are, you're sitting basically next to a camera guy in the stands, and you're his eyes basically because he's in the television remote truck. So, if he needs to know where the field goal kicker is for a team warming up, you would tell him where he is. If there was a flag on the field, you would tell him. You were basically his eyes out in the open when he was in the TV truck.
Did you
So
also look in the stands? Like if
you
someone
would
was
look at
like asking
everything,
someone to marry them or something?
anything interesting, you would look and try to find and relay to him so that they could get a shot of it. But it was funny, the very the very first thing that he told me, he said, here's the number one responsibility I want you to do as my spotter. Make sure I don't leave my jacket in the truck at the end of the game.
That's funny. So
Yeah, so it was a cool job.
I'm gathering that the Westminster Kennel Dog Show wasn't your highlight of.
That was not my highlight. You know, it's funny. I when I was at USA Network, the one thing, the main responsibility I had there was USA had 90 hours of US Open tennis coverage. So I coordinated that and produced that. And that was a great education, and how to hire a staff of freelancers and manage budgets and work on a big event. We did it in collaboration with CBS. You know, they would do the weekends at that time, and USA did during the week. The Westminster Dog Show, the irony of that is I'm not really a hardcore dog person. And so producing that was, the people who know me well got a big kick out of it. We now have a dog. I was born down after 20 years, and my younger son wanted a dog when he was in college, and that dog has now become ours. That's a whole nother separate story. But the Westminster Dog Show, I don't know have you seen the movie Best in Show?
I have.
Yes.
And that's what it's kind of like that.
Very like that. Very similar.
All right, let me move off the dogs. Let's get back to let's get back to sports. So we have some big Duke fans that are out there. People either love them or hate them. Yeah. You worked at Duke games, right? Cameron was how was that like an amazing trip? How was that?
Amazing experience. Yeah, amazing experience. For people that haven't been to Cameron and or Duke fans, they should put it on their bucket list. It's a pretty cool place to go. The cool thing about Cameron was that you you go up to the building. You have no idea it's a gym, no idea it's a stadium, nothing like that. It looks like it's just an academic building. You open the door and the court is pretty much right in front of you. It's pretty amazing. So I remember I did do a Duke North Carolina game there, and that's probably one of the, when people ask what are the coolest events you've done, that would probably be on the list for sure. You know, you get a taste of the kids who camp out in Krzyzewskiville at the time, and wait for tickets, and they sleep in tents for a month, and they have all these rules that they have to follow. You can't leave the tent unattended when you go to class, otherwise you lose your spot in the lottery to get tickets. So it's a pretty cool atmosphere, and it's my experience with Coach K. I obviously did not really know him very well. We did some games, but what happens is when you do a game in the morning, there's the morning shoot around, and it's a chance for the announcers and the production team to spend time with some of the players after they're done with those shoot around, and with the coaches. And the shoot arounds are all different. Some coaches run almost a what seems like a full practice. Others run a very laid back, very casual, fun, 45 minutes or an hour. But when you have a chance to talk to the coaches, it can be somewhat fascinating. And I'll never forget Coach K talking to us. We were doing a game, and he said, for me, the biggest challenge with my kids is convincing them that they all have roles that can help the team. And it's really applicable to anything you do in the world. Doesn't matter what business you're in. He said, I have 12 All-Americans that all scored 20 points a game in high school. My job is to convince some of them that we don't need you to score any points, none. Just get 9-10 rebounds a game, and that will help us win. So it's pretty fascinating to actually hear him talk about some of the nuances and how he related to the kids and his expectations. It was pretty eye-opening.
That's very cool. Now you worked a bunch of tennis opens. Do you have any stories or anything that comes up, or a very memorable moment that happened in any of the opens that you produced?
The U.S. Open, which I did for many years at USA Network, was always my favorite, because you could sleep in your own bed. being
Right.
from New York, you're doing the Grand Slam event right in your own backyard. So that was always, I always enjoyed that. The thing about the Grand Slam tennis events is that if you're a tennis fan, you should try to go to each one. They're all so unique and they're all special in their own way. The U.S. Open, I think the night matches and the energy that New York provides as a backdrop for the night matches is kind of the calling card for the U.S. Open. When I did those matches at USA Network, there were some very, very late nights, whether it was John McEnroe against Michael Chang, or we did a bunch of Carlos Moya matches. There were always a lot of upsets at night. The crowd, to be honest with you, the facility at the U.S. Open has just been improved and is just fantastic. But back 15, 20 years ago, before even Arthur Ashe Stadium, there was a raucousness. It was a little less corporate feeling, and there was a raucousness, and it was very intimidating for players when the crowd was rooting against you, and it kind of lent itself to more upsets, especially at night. So, yeah, there was probably the most memorable match that I produced or was involved in was Sampras Agassi. My last year of doing the U.S. Open was 2002. Sampras Agassi played a quarterfinal match, 4 tiebreak sets. That was one of those matches that had so much hype prior to it starting, and it actually lived up to the hype. And it was a pretty neat thing to be involved in.
Okay, well, let's shift over to baseball.
Okay.
Tomorrow, you got pitchers and catchers. Let's first start off talking about the new baseball rules for 2023. So I saw 4 new rules. You got a pitch timer, you got a pickoff limit, you have defensive shift restrictions, and you have bigger bases. That's a lot of changes. Outside of speeding the game up, how do you think this is going to influence baseball in general?
I think it's going to be probably the biggest change in my lifetime.
Wow.
As far as the game.
Wow.
The timing of this is actually interesting because I just came from meetings last week in New York that we had at Major League Baseball, where they had all the regional networks, which is what SNY is, and the national networks who cover baseball. And they went through the rule changes, and then they showed some video of the impact of the rule changes, because the minor leagues, all these rules that are being implemented were experimental rules used in the minor leagues last year. Mm-hmm. And the pitch clock is going to change the way the game is played, and it's going to change the viewing experience, whether you're in the stadium or watching at home. It's going to it's hard to envision until what happened was they played a tape for us of a half inning of a minor league game, and the pace of the game was so radically different. I don't think any of us in the room could have I think it was eye-opening for the people that were in the room as to how stark the difference was.
So quick question on the pace.
Yeah.
Who does that affect more? Does it affect the pitchers or the hitters?
I think it affects both. The average minor league game, the length of game was reduced by 25 minutes last year when the pitch clock was used. That's cool. And I think, it's not only about the length of game. What they're trying to do is increase the action in the game. The time between action plays has increased by decade to the point now where I think there's a lot of fans that have felt the game has become very laborious to watch. And I think baseball recognized that they needed to do something, and it's going to impact both the pitcher and the hitter. The pitcher will have a certain amount of time to throw a pitch when there's no one on base. He'll have a little more time when there are people on base. You get 2 opportunities to disengage from the rubber, either to throw to the bases as a pickoff move or to step off. And I'm not going to profess to know every nuance of the rule yet. It we'll see in spring training, but It's 20 seconds when there's guys on, 15 when there's no one on. The batter has to be in the batter's box and alert to the pitcher with, I think, 8 or 9 seconds on the clock. So a lot of the dead time with guys stepping out of the box, fixing their gloves, looking for signs, a lot of the pitchers fiddling around with the dirt, walking behind the mound, that's going to all disappear. And it's going to be interesting. It's also going to be very interesting for us on the TV side, because we're used to having a lot of time to do replays. We're used to having a lot of time to whether it's reading promo copy or whether it's setting up storylines between batters or between pitches, and a lot of that is going to become very condensed, and it's going to be kind of an adjustment on our part, I think, as well. And it'll be interesting to say. Good thing is that spring training is fairly long, and we'll have a decent amount of time in spring training to see how it goes and adjust.
And what type of player do you think is the new rules gonna help? Because if you can only throw over to the base two times, is there going to be a lot more stolen bases?
It's going to help. They're trying to promote. Not only is there a pitch clock, the bases are also bigger. The bases have gone from 15 inches to 18 inches. The goal is to try to promote action. They're trying to promote the running game. So the stolen bases which have slowly become less and less a part of the game. I think there's a good chance that this season you're going to see that completely change. So a guy like, I'll tell you who's going to help. I do the Met games. Obviously, we've watched a lot of Trey Turner, who for years was with the Nationals and then with the Dodgers. He's one of my favorite players. I love watching him play. He's an all-around player. He's got great speed. He steals a lot of bases. He was signed this offseason by the Phillies, and he's going to be a guy that comes to mind that will be really impacted in a positive way. He may steal 80 bases this year.
Wow.
The pitchers have a limit of how many times they can throw over to bases to try to pick someone off or disengage from the rubber. And that limit is 2 times. If there's a guy on base and they throw over 2 times, the third time they throw over, if they don't pick the runner off, it's considered a balk, and the runner will get the next base, will be able to advance. So it's going to be a lot different.
And also the defensive shift restrictions. So people like, I'm a Yankee fan, Rizzo, won't hit 106-mile-an-hour shot to right field that gets caught by the second baseman.
Has it bothered you in the past that he wasn't able to go the other way and hit the ball where there were no fielders?
Well, yes. Watch out for my man Rizzo.
The shift rules are going to be are different too. Each team has to have at least 2 infielders on either side of second base. So it's for somebody like the Mets, it'll be interesting to see for Met fans out there. It'll be interesting to see a guy like Jeff McNeil, who has incredible bat control, has been able to survey the field when they've shifted on him, which I never understood why anybody would shift on him. He would survey the field. He'd look where the defense was not playing, and he'd try to hit the ball that way.
That guy's such a good hitter. It's not going to matter. Hitter. He's a great hitter.
Think so?
Yeah.
He might be less effective with the shift having gone away. We'll see.
We'll see. I think that guy's just a great. Some people are just great hitters. Yeah. Rod Carew and other people, Pete Rose. Just certain people are just great. Tony Gwynn. Just Rod great Carew. Hitters.
It's good knowledge. Rod, that's good. You're a real baseball fan.
I'll throw those out there every once in a while. I'll throw you a little curve in there. So let's talk Mets, right? Yeah. Steve Cohen. What is he up to? I just said before, I'm a Met fan. For years, my Met fan friends called us the evil empire for spending so much money in free agents. The Mets have spent about $500 million on free agency this winter. $500 million. Mr. Cohen is looking like Darth Vader. In fact, when you ever see when Darth Vader took his helmet off? That was Steve Cohen behind there. All right. So what's your thoughts about what Steve Cohen is doing?
I think he's a dream for Met fans. I mean, he's, for Met fans, you can relate as somebody who watched George Steinbrenner for years. Nothing came before the desire to win and get the type of player that could help the franchise excel. And I think that's what, Met fans are experiencing right now. And I think they couldn't be happier, I think first and foremost.
And let me just say, I have Met fans in my life, and I've said that to them. I said, you used to yell at me and say how much Steinbrenner is paying and what a terrible guy he is. And I said, now look what's going on. And they love it. Oh, they love it. They love free agency. They love how much he's spending.
So are you heckling your Met friends?
Of course. Are you kidding me? Of course. But you know what? It might work. It might work for.
You know what? You still got to do it on the field. And so
right.
It does put a lot of, I don't want to use the word pressure, but it certainly puts a lot of attention on the franchise. And it certainly, it's been pretty well documented. There are other owners that are not thrilled with the amount of money that's been spent. And,
right.
Everything's been done certainly within the parameters of what the rules are. And, it's his prerogative. And I think for a Met fan, for people affiliated with the Mets, it's fantastic, and I think they'll really, I think the great thing about it is once you get into the postseason, there's no guarantees of anything. But what it does do is help ensure that you're going to be playing meaningful regular season games in August and September and early October. And you're going to be, a successful team year in and year out. And I think for a fan base, that's really all you can ask. So I think it's for the Met fans, it's fantastic.
So let me just look at the economics here for a second. I'm trying to square the circle here. If Steve Cohen is spending money, he spent this year's salary is $330,643,332.
Exactly.
Exactly. How is he? How is it? How are the Mets making money?
You tell me. I'm just a.
I'm going to tell you.
Producer.
Thank you for asking.
Me.
I got it figured out.
Yeah,
I got it figured out. Beer is $12. He needs to sell 27,553,611 beers, and he'll break even.
That's a layup. That'll be done by
12 million beers.
That'll be done by Father's Day. No problem.
There you go. That's it.
Interesting, the shorter games. I wonder about the stadiums and their concessions. They're going to sell less stuff if the game's
they
shorter.
cut it. Oh, yeah, maybe they won't cut it off at what do they cut off at seventh inning or something.
Beer,
like that?
But you can still sell hot dogs through the.
But maybe they won't cut it off unless that's a rule. Let it go to 9 innings.
Maybe it'll be instead of by innings, it be by time. That's it. I'm going to put that down on my list of things to. I'm going to give that to our sideline reporter Steve Gallup, and I'll make that one of his first missions at Citi Field this year.
Listen, if they want to interview me, I'll be more than happy to be a man of the street if you want. Well, speaking of man of the street, I'm going to bring in the lady of the street.
Oh,
I'm going to bring Lisette Almanzar. Lisette is part of our team at Align Wealth, and she's got tremendous baseball knowledge. And there's Lisette. Hey, Lisette.
Hi, guys.
How you doing? All right. So the woman of the street, Lisette, I know that you have some questions for Gregg. Please fire away.
Let's see, Gregg. So I'm getting limited time here. So I want.
Let me just say one thing before.
Sure.
I was very, very impressed because you've been sitting patiently for 30 minutes, and you automatically are ready for high level media because you unmuted yourself before you asked the question. Nobody had to remind you to be unmuted, which if you're on all these Zoom calls.
Well, look at her age. She knows media, better than we all do.
Yeah.
So let's see. So speaking of, the next generation, the younger demo, I know, we're talking about these rule changes and how, you guys are constantly trying to change things up to appeal to the younger demo. So for me, I have to say that I personally love when you guys brought mic up the players on broadcast and we get that, their authentic reactions and personality comes through. What are your thoughts on what you might want to see changing in broadcasting to appeal to, maybe younger demographics or more fans?
Well, I think for us, on the production side, as far as baseball goes, I think one thing that we have tried to do in the last couple of years that we've been quasi-successful. One of the things that's happened with baseball, I think, having had some experience playing and been around the game for so long, it's very hard for fans when they're watching on TV to appreciate the speed of the game and the incredible reflexes that the players have and the reaction time that is needed. And I think we at SNY have had this philosophy of one of the reasons for that is the ball is always moving away from the viewer. So that when you sit at home on TV, when you sit at home watching on TV and you watch a pitch go right down the middle, and you ask yourself, like, how could the batter take that fastball for strike 3?
Carlos Beltran.
That was a curveball, but the viewer at home, it's impossible for them to get the real experience of what it's like to have a 95-mile-an-hour fastball coming at you and the reaction time needed, because since the ball's going away, everything seems like it's slowed down. And when the ball's hit, in baseball, we cut to the high home camera that is above home plate, and the ball again is moving away from you. So one of the things that we've tried to do, and we've had a little bit of success, we'd like to have a little more this year, is find a camera position behind home plate that puts the viewer basically in the batter's box, so that the pitch is coming towards you. You can still see home plate, you see the pitcher, you see the catcher, you see the hitter, and you get a real sense of what hitters are up against in the batter's box. So I would like to see that. I know that there's been in Japanese baseball, there have been different cameras, sometimes a super slow-mo camera where the camera's mounted in a way, whether it's on the umpire, and there's some stability where it's not shaking, where you really get a sense of the ball coming in and what the hitter is going through. So that's one big thing. The other thing is we'd like to get as much player access as possible, like you were saying. I think this year, one thing that we would like to try to do is interview hitters when they're in the on-deck circle on occasion. Certainly not in a way that's intrusive, and we would ask each player to do it once or twice during the course of the entire season, but it would give you an idea as a viewer of what the batter is thinking about and in the few moments right before they approach the plate.
While you talk about it, I'm just thinking out loud, and it probably can't happen, but do you ever think about putting the camera on the player, on the cap or on the shoulder, so that you get a different view?
Yes, the problem is that a lot of the catchers and umpires have worn cameras in the past. ESPN has used that, and some of the networks have used that. You really have to use it prudently, and also rely on your technical operations people to help with the stability of the camera, because if it's shaking, it causes a lot of people, you get very out of sorts, and a lot of people don't like that, feel like they're getting dizzy, and it just doesn't, it's not stable enough. Yeah. But I think giving people a sense of the speed of the game and the reflexes needed by putting a camera behind the plate in the appropriate spot is great. We've had a camera up on the screen. Most networks have a camera up on the screen at all the ballparks. You see a camera. We'll use that camera for real-time replays, but we don't cover pitches live because a lot of the viewers object to when we do that because they don't see home plate. So you see the speed of the pitch, but you don't see the plate. So you don't really see the ball cross the plate. It's hard to know the ball or strike. So, those are two. I think the player access stuff is really great. And anything you can do to get the viewers to know the players and create a rooting interest, whether it's for them or against them, is great. So Lisette, some of the stuff the stuff you mentioned in terms of miking up players is good. There's a very fine line between miking up players. Sometimes in the All-Star game, the networks Fox will mic up players when they're in the field, and they'll talk to them. It's easier to do that during exhibition games than it is during games that really count. So not that easy to do.
Makes sense. Lisette, what other questions you have for Gregg?
Let's see. So, Gregg, are you going to be tuning into the World Baseball Classic this spring training?
The World Baseball Classic. The Mets are faced. I think 10 of their players are playing in the World Baseball Classic.
12. I got 12, the number. 12
12.
and five minor league. 17 in total.
Which is quite a lot. And
it's a lot.
I know that that for a manager or coaching staff, it could be a little disruptive in spring training to have that happen when players come and go.
But it
the Mets
gives a
have
chance for some of the other people to
it
maybe
definitely is
show
a chance. The
themselves.
Mets have a few young players that, like Brett Beatty, who's a third baseman. He's going to get a lot of at bats because some of the guys that are in front of him are going to be are going to be involved in the World Baseball Classic. So I think it's a cool thing. It's reminiscent of Davis Cup in tennis. It's a little tricky, I think, the World Baseball Classic. It's hard to know when to have it because what time of year to have it, So to have it now it's a little tricky for the pitchers in terms of how much they throw and what kind of game shape they're in. But by the same token, if they come out of it healthy, they're more game ready than they would be in the years where the World Baseball Classic's not being held. Are you a big fan, Lisette, of the WBC?
I'm Dominican, so I have a big rooting interest for my
Well, that'll be one of the
fellow
favorites.
Dominican players. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be one of the favorites for sure. It's amazing. It's amazing the amount of major league players that have come out of the Dominican. It really is amazing.
Yeah. It's a tiny island, but it's somehow baseball is just the thing that comes through.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure on the island there's a tremendous amount of pride in the players that have reached the majors, and it creates this whole pipeline. It's pretty amazing. A lot of the teams now have academies that have opened down there.
Yeah.
Very cool. Greg, I want to talk about the announcers.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting to see how. I was waiting on that.
Listen, it's I got a lot of questions here. So you've worked with some of the best announcers out there. We'll talk about the Met announcers in a second. But I want to know who was the best announcers or some of the best announcers. I know you work with Dickie V and John McEnroe. Who was some of the best announcers and why?
Oh, that's wow. You almost have to separate play-by-play guys from the analysts. I think if you talk about that, Dick Enberg was probably one of my favorites. Obviously, so well known. He did so many amazing marquee events through his career, and was interesting because he was an educator. I believe he was a teacher, Dick Enberg. And he had an amazing command of the language. Why, the question as to what makes a great announcer is hard to answer. But I can probably say one of the most important things is just being genuine. And Dick Enberg was one of the kindest, nicest people that I've ever worked with, and he cared equally about the person who was next to him doing the analysis as he did about an intern who he saw. I remember one time I was doing something with him at ESPN. He noticed that one of the interns or one of the people working in the office seemed upset, and he was like really consumed by it. And that was a very, that's a real aberration for guys who achieve that kind of stature. So I really have a soft spot in my heart for working with him and his ability or command of the English language that made him so special as a play-by-play person and able to relay and convey what he was seeing on a court or on a field. So he was really one of my favorites. John McEnroe was love him. Worked at USA Network with him. He's just was a great. For me, I worked with him when I was very young and very early in my producing career, and it was a real education and a real test. He taught me a lot of stuff in terms of, John, a lot of television outlets have production meetings before games, and John didn't even want John at the production meeting. He didn't have the patience for a production meeting. So John, do me a favor, don't come to the meeting. Just show up, put the headset on 2 minutes before we go to air. And that's pretty much what he did.
And Greg, we have a question from Stu. Stu would like to know, what do you think about Tom Brady and his announcing skills? You think he'll be good, bad, or different?
I can't comment on that because I have not heard Tom Brady at all. So I would imagine that before Fox made the deal with Tom, and I'm guessing, I don't know anything at all about what they've done, but usually with ex-players that want to go into television, they will do a practice game with an established play-by-play person, and kind of get a feel for what they think the person's ability is, and the upside of what they'll be like when they go into the television world. So I'm guessing that Fox did that. I don't know for sure. I could ask my buddy Kevin Burkhardt, who just called the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, yeah.
2 days ago. Kevin was at SNY as our sideline reporter for years, and also one of my favorites, and one of the more likable personalities, both on the air and off the air. One of my really, really close friends who I miss terribly not working with him. I'll tell you a funny story about Kevin, just a little aside before we go back to Tom Brady. Kevin really, in the 8 or 9 years, I think 7, 8, 9 years, he was at SNY doing the sideline reporting. He was game to do anything. He would, go up in the stands and he'd talk to fans, and there wasn't a single thing that he didn't try or didn't want to do, except for I asked him to take his shirt off one time and sit with the bleacher creatures at Wrigley Field in the bleachers during a day game. And he goes, Greg, I don't think that's a good idea. So he probably made a very good decision, because having ascended to the point where he's now calling Super Bowls, I'm sure the video of him with no shirt on would have been everywhere had he actually done that.
And by the way, I'm not going to talk about a shirtless Tom Brady. I'm just saying. I know that's going around, but I'm not going to talk about that.
I don't know. I'll be curious to hear from Stu whether he thinks Tom's going to be, what kind of analyst.
Well, we'll find out. We'll ask. We'll get Stu. We'll find out.
Okay.
Greg, so there's not some nepotism there with these star players and entering the booth. It seems like they have a pretty quick track getting in there.
I think, honestly, Lisette, I think that the thing for networks, they want big names.
Mm-hmm.
If they're big names on the field, they think that cachet will help attract viewers and kind of carry, a certain high level of, expectations, but also it'll be an attention grabber. And I think they want that, It certainly doesn't hurt.
Right. So Gary Cohen, Ron Darling, Keith Hernandez, and Gregg Picker have been together 18 years. Tremendous chemistry. What's the secret sauce here? What makes this so great?
Ask that. People always ask that. Like, and it's I don't think there is actually any secret sauce. I think it's just Kurt Gowdy, who put us all together. Kurt Gowdy Jr., who I just spoke to yesterday, actually. And Steve Rabb, who now is president of SNY. Kurt was really responsible for putting us all together, and I think the secret sauce is that the guys in the booth have fortunately trust our production team to put them in the best light. And honestly, I think they all have really strong personalities, but an incredible respect for one another. So I think that's part of it. And I think really, if you had to choose one word, it would be genuine. They really, in this day and age with social media and all the critics out there and everybody wanting to just be negative about everything, I don't think they really care what people write or say about them. Not in an arrogant way, but in a way that is confident. We know when we've done something good. We know when something we've done needs to be a little bit better. And it just is a great, it's just a great combination. They're genuine, honest. And I think really, if I had one of the things that's cool is that they, it's more than baseball. I think for fans, baseball is really unique because it's every day. So I think for 6 or 7 months, fans, if you're really a hardcore fan, you get attached to the broadcast and you get attached to the announcers because you hear them every night. It almost becomes like appointment watching, it's appointment television. Like, whatever happened to me during the day, I have Gary, Keith, and Ron tonight, and I think there really is something to that. And our guys, we try to take what we do really seriously, but we try really not to take ourselves too seriously, which sounds so cliche, but we're as apt to talk about Keith getting stuck in traffic or being scammed by the Florida Power and Light Company as we are about a guy stealing a base. And they're not afraid to be emotional. I remember the terrible tragedy when Jose Hernandez was killed in a boating accident. We went on the air the next day because we were in Miami. And the guys broke down in the booth. And I think that realness, that genuineness, the emotion, the laughing, the tears, the honest analysis for fans, the objectivity, all of it kind of goes into this pile and helps make them really one of the most popular booths in any sport. I think it's, and for me personally, to be able to work with them has been amazing. I've never worked with a play-by-play person more prepared or better at what he does than Gary Cohen, without fail. And, Ron Darling works as hard as any analyst I've ever, been around, which is saying something. And Keith brings a charisma and entertainment and a mix with those guys that you can't teach. So it's just happens to be a really good blend of guys, and they're trusting of me on the entire production team, and they're really terrific. And I think for fans, there's a great trust because they're honest, and that is, they're not really homers, they're objective. Of course, we want the Mets to succeed for a lot of reasons, but they're very honest in their calling of a game, and we don't ignore the other team. A lot of regional broadcasts are very slanted in terms of the information they provide, and our thinking has always been that the New York sports fan is pretty savvy, and to ignore one of the teams that's on the field is kind of silly. So we try to balance it out.
So between just Lisette, I and you, what kind of dirt? What kind of dirt? What kind of give us some dirt? Take us behind the scenes. What kind of dirt? Give us something. Anything?
Something to grab onto?
Keith, cats, cigarettes. I don't know. Anything? Any dirt?
Keith, cats, and cigarettes. Well, cats. That's going to be a sad day. God forbid when Haji finally passes. I think he's like 20 years old. The cat.
Wow.
Yeah. So that'll be a whole therapy needed, week or two for sure. I love those guys. Dirt. You're gonna have to. I don't know.
You're putting a footnote. You're putting a footnote on that one.
I'm gonna make a note. Yeah, I'm gonna make a little note to.
We'll come back.
Come back to that. Yeah, I'll come back to that.
So a question from one of the Met fans that I'm friendly with. He feels that Keith Hernandez, who revolutionized first base, 11 Gold Gloves, most ever by a first baseman, MVP, 5-time All-Star, 2-time World Series winner, leader among men, should be in the Hall of Fame. What do you think? Scott Rowland got in, and he's got a better batting average, better OPS, more hits. What do you?
If I had a vote, Keith would get my vote. I don't have a vote, so it means nothing. But I think he's a Hall of Fame player. I think it's unfortunate that as well-rounded a player he was, he probably gets penalized because he didn't hit a ton of home runs, And I think he was just, anybody who wins 11 Gold Gloves, you've got a pretty good case to be made for being in the Hall of Fame, especially when you've almost been a 300 hitter, and he accomplished what he did at the plate and throwing the leadership stuff and 2 World Series. If that's not a Hall of Famer, I really, I don't know what is a Hall of Famer.
Okay. Lisette, what do you think? Hall of Fame? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
He has my vote.
Has your vote, okay. And one other Hall of Fame question, the new Met, Carlos Beltran. He should be Hall of Fame, right?
Carlos Beltran will probably be a Hall of Famer. The Hall of Fame voting, it's interesting how guys start off, in their 10 years of eligibility at a certain level, and how some of the guys each year are increasing. I think Andrew Jones, was a great center fielder. Had a season where he hit 50 home runs. I'd be shocked. He's gained traction in the last couple of years. I'd be very surprised if a guy like that doesn't end up in the Hall of Fame. But the Hall of Fame, that's a whole nother show, Mark. Okay, all right. We'll save that. It's a whole nother show. I could talk to you about Gary, Keith, and Ron for like an hour, in terms of.
All right. We got. We'll save some things. Okay, so I have another question.
Yes, lay it on me.
Financial question. Okay.
Financial question.
Bobby Bonilla. Bobby Bonilla was owed $5.9 million in year 2000, but his his agent negotiated that would get him $1,190,000 each year until he reached 72 years old.
Yeah.
It's been
Good for him.
22 years. It's been 22 years. Has that been a good deal or a bad deal for Bobby Bonilla? What do you think?
How can you be a financial guru and ask me a question like that?
I'm
That's for
asking you the question, and then I'll give you the answer.
I'm a
I'll
TV
give you my
producer. I
answer.
cannot comment on the finances of an individual.
Okay, then I'll give you the answer.
You have the answer.
I will answer. Assume that he had a 6% rate of return on his money and he never touched the money. Okay? If he got $1.19 million every year for the last 22 years and he never touched the money, he just invested and got 6% rate of return, no taxes, it would be $54 million right now. Okay? Not bad. That works, right? 54 million. However, if he took $5.9 million, invested at 6%, the compounding of interest.
How much would he have?
Which is the eighth wonder of the world. Okay. It would be $76 million. So I think that his agent should be fired. Right? That's it.
Mark, I have to object. I have to object because these athletes may not have a great financial advisor to guide them not to spend the 1 million every year.
Yeah, right. May not have the discipline.
Okay, well.
How about this? Why don't we leave it at this? I would take either of those sums in a heartbeat. Listen, we would take either one of those sums.
This is true. Yes.
This is definitely true.
Before I get to the lightning round, I'm just going to ask anybody out there that wants to ask a question. You can just type in that question. So while I do the lightning round, if anyone has any questions to ask Gregg, please type it in and we will ask that question. All right, Gregg, you ready for a lightning round?
Lightning round. I gotta, yeah.
You gotta be prepared.
Come to attention. What kind of time frame do I have in these questions?
Oh, we're gonna clock you. We're gonna clock you like baseball. All right,
okay.
You ready?
Lay it on me.
Pickleball or tennis?
Oh, both. I can't choose one. I don't understand why some of these people have to have one or the other. I have to answer that. Tennis.
Tennis. Okay. I will say that someone did comment about your backhand in pickleball. Just saying, someone did in the Q&A commented about your pickleball, and his initials are DD. I'm just saying. Okay.
DD. Just okay.
All right.
Good.
All right. Ready? Here comes the next question. 2023 NBA Finals winner. Who do you think wins the finals in the NBA? Gregg Picker, you're on the clock.
Celtics.
Celtics. Okay. All right. This one's an easy one. Yankees or Mets?
Mets. I mean, the Mets pay me.
All right. Calm down. All right. Wait. Okay. All right. You're at the movies.
Yeah.
Do you get popcorn or candy?
How about both?
Oh man.
My wife gets the popcorn. We take the snow caps, put it in the popcorn, and eat both.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. Name one of the 7 dwarfs.
I'm not a cartoon. Sleepy.
Okay. Good. You got one. Okay. Beer or wine?
Beer or wine? Beer.
Okay. All right. 2 more. Addams Family or the Munsters?
Oh, the Munsters.
Okay. They'll be
What about you? What about you?
Oh, I like Addams Family. Thing.
Oh, really?
Thing.
What's that?
Addams Family. Gotta go with Addams Family.
What's your favorite character on the Addams Family?
Thing.
Wednesday.
Wednesday, right. She's got a show. All right, last question.
Really, I Dream of Jeannie. I would have preferred the I Dream of Jeannie as a choice. That would have moved to the top of the list.
Well, here's your last one. Here's your last chance. Marianne or Ginger?
This came up at dinner recently. Marianne or Ginger? I'm gonna say I'll say Ginger. I'll say Ginger.
Very disappointed.
Most people go with Marianne. That's
very disappointed. Very disappointed.
I'm a little bit of a contrarian because everybody says Marianne.
Yes. Okay.
That's it. We'll give you the extent of the lightning round.
That was it. You want me to go more? I can go more, but I think that's the lightning round did go so fast.
I actually needed Gary, Keith, and Ron for that. That's the cool thing about working with them. Like we're just as apt to talk about. I mean, they can give you the most hardcore baseball, breakdown, but at the same time, they'll spend, a much more enthusiastic amount of time on the, the Rolling Stones or the Mamas and the Papas or whatever. They're
That's
huge
fun.
music people.
Are they? Okay.
Oh my God.
That's,
Yeah. Our audio guys will play music prior to going on the air, and they're all, they make requests all the time, and it's the whole thing. Yeah.
that's fun. That's fun. Well, we're coming to the top of the hour. Lisette, did you have any other questions?
Is there anything that we don't appreciate as fans, what it takes to bring 162 games, into our homes?
You know what? That's honestly a great question. It would be really great, and I would say that the answer to that is it's the baseball season from a travel standpoint is very challenging. It's really exhausting. So that sometimes when you turn your TVs off at 10 o'clock, and we're about to go from New York to, I don't know, St. Louis or something. You're flying at 2, 3 in the morning, and you get into a hotel at 4 in the morning. I think probably most people don't recognize the wear and tear on everybody to actually go through the rigors of a full baseball season. Until you do it, it's really hard to convey how trying and physically taxing it is. So I think that, and then also working with a lot of different people. When you, as a regional network, when you do the shows from Citi Field, we have our home crew, which is great, and some of the best cameramen and tape guys, and for me to work with the announcers and call replays, and our director John DeMarsico to call shots. You're working with some of the best technicians, and then when you go to other cities and you're on the road, you're picking up a lot of local people in those cities, and there's a real differentiation in both skill level as you travel across the country. So sometimes you may have done an amazing job in doing your individual job when you're on the road, and for people watching at home, it just looks very basic. And so that's one of the things that's a real challenge is surrounding yourself with good crew people, and people really don't know that. So that's two of the things that are most glaring, I think. Good question.
Good question, Gregg. You've said it all. Any parting words for our Coffee with Krav fans? Any parting words that you like to?
Yeah, I think should the market tank and you need some sort of a second career, you and Lisette, I think there's a real possibility that some sort of talk radio or some sort of podcast, some sort of position in the media for the two of you is on the horizon.
Okay, we'll take the show on the road. Lisette and I will take the show on the road.
I would definitely do that. I think both of you guys should come to a Met game this year and watch the game from the TV production truck. And,
yes.
And see how that goes. Yeah, since we've had this chat.
Yes, I'm in.
Okay. We'll make it.
We'll do a Coffee with Krav from the production truck. How's that?
That would be fantastic. I think we could do that. That'd be a showstopper.
That'd be a showstopper. Well, Gregg, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Really, really appreciate it. So nice spending Valentine's Day with you. It's been very, very sweet. So nice of you to get roses for Nancy, your wife. It was really nice of you.
I really appreciate that.
And I want to thank everybody for tuning in again to Coffee with Krav. We will have another fantastic episode coming soon. I got great guests coming up, all lined up. Be aware. Look at your invitations that's coming out, and everybody have a fantastic Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day to Meryl Lisette. Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. See you guys.
See ya. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.